Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining. I know we got different time zones represented. It's noon here in Massachusetts, but I know it's nighttime for some of our folks abroad and stuff. So thank you, whatever time of the day it is. I appreciate you taking a few minutes. The Unified 5K. I guess we had a similar meeting about a year ago when it was just an idea, and I invited a few friends to kind of talk about the concept. So to see everything that we were able to do this year, and then to see three times as many people on a call today and all the sites that have expressed interest for 2026 and beyond is really exciting for us as an organization. So I know most of you, but for those who I don't, who I'm haven't connected with yet, my name's Brendan. I run Adaptex here out of our gym in Massachusetts. So we have an inclusive strength and conditioning facility here in Massachusetts. About a quarter of our members have disabilities, and Adaptex is our adjacent nonprofit that provides education for fitness professionals and has a variety of other social impact initiatives. But ultimately, the premise of the organization is to address barriers to fitness and physical activity for people with disabilities. And kind of the four segments in which we do so is through our education. Like I mentioned, we operate the Rick Hoyt Research Lab. If you're familiar with Dick and Rick Hoyt, they're a wheelchair running duo that I've been involved with for the last 12 years. And they were generous enough to provide some seed funding to help our initial research efforts. Advocacy includes a lot of our education piece, our speaking to other gyms, the grant programs, and the various things that we provide. And then opportunity, one of the biggest ones being this 5K series and the various initiatives and donations that come from it. So those are the four kind of segments of the organization that these events are supporting and that you would be supporting if you're able to help us expand this series to your community. So ultimately, the premise of the Unified 5K is not just a road race. We like to view it as a social impact initiative, again, that aims to address these barriers to physical activity that people with disabilities face. And they're plentiful, and I won't pretend that they're easily solved with an event like this. But we can at least start to kind of chip away at some of the barriers that exist within our own communities. And that's why it's so valuable to have you on this webinar, you involved with this series, because we can't do it alone here in Massachusetts. It requires our network of Adaptex coaches and volunteers and supporters. So again, really appreciative for everyone who's willing to take the time and consider whether this is a good fit for you and your organization. So if you haven't gotten a chance to look at it yet, have a QR code here. We put together a 2025 impact report from the 7 races that we held this year. We were in Cumberland, Rhode Island, Salt Lake City, Utah, Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, here in Lancaster, St. Paul, Minnesota, Gulu, Uganda, and then Dexter, Michigan, with the team from University of Michigan. So Nate from our Mechanicsburg race and Brian from our Dexter race are both on this call, and they're going to talk a little bit towards the end about the value that it provided for their universities and organizations, and also just their experience as a race director kind of in this inaugural year. These data points here do not include our race in Uganda that served over 200 people with disabilities. So between the 6 races in the US, we were able to serve almost 200 individuals with disabilities, various diagnoses. Not everyone discloses in the registration process whether or not they have a disability. So maybe some of the less apparent disabilities like neurodivergence, et cetera, weren't accounted for, but we had very diverse races and what we deemed to be pretty successful races as well in the inaugural year. This all kind of kicked off by connecting with a variety of organizations that are like-minded in their missions. So National Down Syndrome Society, my team Triumph is like Team Hoyt. Les Legmore Hart was our Running Blade partner, which I'll talk a little bit about. And then Achilles International has chapters everywhere, and many of them participated in our races. The Para Rowing Foundation is one that we've recently added, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then Hoyt Running Chairs, in conjunction with the Hoyt Foundation, has committed to donate at least one Hoyt running chair at a race. We had a really successful donation at our Minnesota race to a duo from my team Triumph. They used the chair several weeks after to run Grandma's Marathon, and they qualified for Boston with their performance there. So they'll be coming up to visit me here in Massachusetts this spring, which will be great. And they'll run the Boston Marathon together. So this was kind of the first question or hurdle that we had to kind of figure out. So ultimately, these are events hosted by AdaptX, and you are likely affiliated with a university or another nonprofit organization, and we want it to benefit you and the people that you serve as well. So first question when we started working on this series 11 or 12 months ago was, how can we use the event as a platform that amplifies your work and supports your fundraising endeavors? So local community impact is big as well. So when we go into a new location or a new community and we reach out to possible vendors, we reach out to possible sponsors, they're likely going to wonder, how is this organization in Massachusetts going to improve our immediate community here? So first and foremost, an inclusive opportunity for people with disabilities to be active. And we realize that it's just one event. And so we do want to expand the scope of it for it to be more programmatic in nature. I'll talk a little bit about like run and roll programs that we're hoping to incorporate this coming year. But we want to create this opportunity for people with and without disabilities to seamlessly coexist in a race setting, and kind of demonstrate how it benefits both populations. The running blade donation, so we were able to donate one running blade to an amputee at every race, which was a great initiative that we were able to add thanks to Less Leg, More Heart and individual prosthetist sponsors in each race community. Like I mentioned, we were able to donate that one Hoyt running chair, and we'll continue to do so. Adaptive equipment donations. So at each race, we identified a local fitness facility. For some of our race directors, it was their organization that was the beneficiary in this regard, but we were able to donate some adaptive fitness equipment to their facilities and provide our education to their staff and the people within their organization that would benefit from it. Adaptive athlete grant program. So in 2 weeks, we open up applications for our grant program, and we have several different sections that I'll share about in a little bit. But we were able to, we'll be disseminating about $20,000 this fall, and that was heavily due to the fundraising that we did through the 5Ks. So the more sites that we have, the more grants we'll be able to distribute to athletes who need the financial assistance to purchase equipment or participate in events and competition. Adaptive Sports Expo and vendors, that's a key part of our events, is the expo portion. So we invite vendors, like-minded vendors, adaptive sports organizations to come by. We do exhibits, clinics. We had 10 different adaptive parasport clinics between the 7 races. So we were able to demonstrate goalball, amputee soccer, a variety of different sports. And we viewed that as an educational piece as well, like teaching the greater community about adaptive sport and parasport, and hopefully piquing some people's interest in volunteering and participating in these sports. And then access is something that we recently have started developing. Our organization won a grant through the University of Pittsburgh to build out a mobile app that connects people with disabilities with the support that they need to be more physically active. So that might be a guide if you're going for a run, a duo partner if you're looking to get pushed in a chair, maybe an adaptive sports organization, or a qualified exercise professional. So those are the kind of the 4 populations or 4 user personas within the app. And it will basically just function as a geotagging app. But we're using the unified 5K sites to kind of pilot that app. So the organizations that we've connected with for each race community will kind of be the first ones on the platform. And hopefully that will build out an incentive structure as well for those organizations to participate in our race. Can we use a unified 5K to fundraise for our organization, that being your organization? And the answer is yes. I mentioned earlier that it's a social impact initiative. So while we would love for this to fundraise for our Unify, or for AdaptX, for our nonprofit, I want it to be beneficial for yours. This is just the slides for the sake of transparency, and maybe the economics of it or the fundraising success, probably because I was organizing a lot of these kind of on my own and doing all of them simultaneously. Obviously, our local race directors were doing a ton of work, but I mean, from like a fundraising standpoint, I was kind of being pulled in different directions, trying to get all the races off and running. So we spent about $3,300 to host the event. That doesn't include Lancaster, Gulu, or St. Paul. I didn't include Gulu because AdaptX just covered the expenses of that, and it was a little bit of a different environment. Didn't include St. Paul because we we probably made one mistake over the course of the whole series, which was hiring like a race directing company. I wasn't sure if I was going to fly out to Minnesota. I ended up flying out to Minnesota, but we had a big expense on a race director. And so that is a mistake we won't make in subsequent years. Doesn't include the t-shirts and medals, which our Lancaster race paid for. That's why I didn't include that one in that number. So you could expect that for like an inaugural event, we can probably put it on with like a $3,000 to $5,000 budget. Revenue wise, they somewhat broke even, generated a little bit of money for the organization, but our Lancaster race does so well that it was able to still kind of be successful globally as a fundraising endeavor. Average number of participants, 112. Again, didn't include Lancaster because we've been doing it for years, and didn't include Gulu because they had about 700 people. So that would skew those numbers greatly. So first year, and a lot of it will come down to the community that you have and the resources that you have and the effort that you would kind of put into recruiting participants. I was doing my best to get people involved from afar, but our local race directors, if you have strong connections within your community, that number will likely grow. But in the first year, you can probably expect to have between 100 and 150 people. And then hopefully each year it will continue to grow like Lancaster. How do we choose the sites? So I guess the first thing is why more sites? The more races we have, obviously, the more adaptive athletes we can serve and the more blade donations we can make, the more people with disabilities we can introduce to our grant program. We can educate more communities through the expo piece or through the education that our organization provides. And we can market our services to more people. That's probably the most self-serving reason. And then better likelihood of corporate sponsors. One of our long-term goals is kind of to have so many races that we would be more appealing to a larger sponsor to kind of be like the title sponsor behind the event as a whole. But that's down the road. So we want more sites. We want to serve more people with disabilities. We want to see this continue to grow, and we want to build it in a way that is really scalable. We've written a unified 5K quote unquote handbook or operations manual that we will share with all of our race directors. It kind of goes into all the details of how to choose a course, what you're looking for with like a venue, stuff like that, and everything from 4 months out to race day. Ultimately, our organization is responsible for all of the expenses associated with organizing the race. So your organization wouldn't be responsible for anything from a financial standpoint, or if you're an individual kind of operating on your own, again, you wouldn't be responsible for any of the expenses associated with putting together the race. We'd build the website and the registration platform and create all the marketing and social media resources. We'd build out a mailing list for you. So every race, we kind of had interns, et cetera, internally build out mailing lists of like-minded nonprofits that we would want to invite to the events. We have our PR and consulting team put together a media advisory to reach out to like your local TV stations and newspapers. We would book the vendors, so your chip timing companies, EMT, medical, police detail, and the venue, and obtain any permits that are necessary. And then we would coordinate the running blade donation. If you have someone in mind for that, we would love to give it to someone that you can already vouch for. But we are able to kind of coordinate the prosthetist partner and the running blade donation. So who were our race directors? Former interns of mine from my gym here and volunteers who've since moved out and moved on like to different states. So our team out in Salt Lake City were people from Massachusetts who are now out in Salt Lake City. Same with Minnesota. People that were volunteers at my gym beforehand. Those were kind of the people that I first reached out to with just like a, hey, are you interested in seeing if we can host more than one race? Some of our ambassadors, so our ambassador program supports people with disabilities that are participating in events, endurance events specifically. And some of them helped us bring the races to their communities, AdaptX coaches, so people who've taken our education and support our mission, advocates, and then nonprofit partners. So what is expected of or makes an effective race director? And it's really not like any experience race directing. I think at this point we can kind of help people from afar. But what I really need from our local race directors is the ability to kind of preview and provide feedback on the course and venue. One of the hardest things for me to do from afar was find a nice course and kind of assess the condition of the road. Because if we want to have wheelchairs participating, you obviously need to hit certain standards and criteria that make the course accessible. So ability to preview a course, run the course, check out the venue, kind of conceptualize where you would put vendor tables, the flow of the event as a whole. But I spent a lot of time on Google Maps and stuff, kind of trying to do some of that stuff from afar. Conducting some preliminary research. So that would more so be like, what events already exist within your community? What are some of the conflicting things, whether it's the Special Olympics state tournament or some other adaptive sports organization runs this big competition on this weekend, and we wouldn't want to have our event on that same weekend. So one of the primary things for you to do is kind of figure out what time of year. That obviously factors in weather, as well as other events that could be conflicting. So we would kind of ask you to do that piece. We're happy to do the races any time of year. Then we just make sure that it's the most convenient for your community. Willingness to disseminate flyers to local businesses. So bringing flyers to running stores, et cetera, would be great. We didn't do a lot of that this year, but we hope to kind of build that in for next year. Well connected to the local community is important from a fiscal success. So connected to businesses for sponsorships, connected to other nonprofits to kind of get participants, schools, running clubs, et cetera, has all been pretty important. So the first kind of decision to make is when you want to host it and where do you want to host it. And I guess I don't have anything too profound to say beyond that. So finding a time of year that's best weather-wise, and like I mentioned, are there any other conflicting events? You're probably not going to be able to avoid all other 5Ks that exist within your community, but you can at least maybe find events with similar missions. If there's certain events that are more inclusive and accessible, we certainly don't want to interfere with anyone's existing event. That's not the intention. So we would want to find a way to kind of make it synergistic. Maybe our race is a month before theirs and we invite them to come to the race, share flyers, promote their events. We're really trying to use our platform to kind of amplify the work of others. So ultimately, the Unified 5K event is intended to benefit AdaptX and the programs that we serve, but we have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how it can kind of benefit your organizations as well. So it's intended to increase our budget so we can host more events. Like I mentioned before, it's not a huge fundraiser in the first year, and in many cases they operated at a loss. But we still are able to have all these different initiatives like donating the running blades and donating the running chairs, disseminate grants to adaptive athletes this fall, grow our marketing budget so we can reach more people with our education. Doesn't matter how good our courses are if it's not marketed to people. Budgeting for our educational content, we pay all of our educators, many of which have disabilities, to create content and create material for our educational curriculum, and then the ongoing development of the mobile app. So how would your organizations benefit? And that's what Nate and Brian will talk about in a minute here, but community event for your members. If you serve people with disabilities, we would love for them to participate. Connecting with like-minded organizations. I know a lot of our race directors found value in the expo, in the vendors, and Nate and Brian will expand on that. Grant opportunities. So the people that you serve might be the people that we're trying to give grants to. So we would love and welcome them to apply for our grants. Peer-to-peer fundraising. That's probably one of the next pieces of like our race committee that we'll add, is someone responsible for peer-to-peer fundraising. So if you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's like someone within your organization can register for our events. And I guess I didn't mention before, but all people with disabilities register for free. They can register for our events and they can set up a fundraising page for, I'll just use like Push to Walk because I know they're on the call, like Push to Walk, a nonprofit in New Jersey, and they can fundraise. They can say, hey, I'm rolling the Unified 5K, and they can share their fundraising page. This is why Push to Walk is important to me. And they can try to use the event to fundraise for Push to Walk. So that's not something that we did this year. It is something that we're hoping to do next year. Again, so it benefits your organizations just as much as it benefits ours. And then down the road, like as we solicit more sponsorships, we want that money to go to you as long as our costs are covered for AdaptX. So as long as we can recoup some of the money that we put into those startup expenses, then I would love for any sponsorships and stuff, because you're tapping into your community. and we want the event to be an incentive for someone to make a donation to your organization. So if they want to sponsor the Unified 5K and they want their name logo on the back of a t-shirt, we still want that money to go to you. But we can provide this event, this platform that does incentivize them to make that donation beyond just your mission. And then ultimately, you could be the recipient of the education. So if you're from a university and you want to see students or staff take our courses, we can provide that. You could be the beneficiary of the adaptive fitness donation. You could have someone within your organization that receives the running blade or the running chair. Those are all things that are possible. So what do we expect with the inaugural events? Like I mentioned before, the first year, the goal is just a good, diverse participant turnout, establish a safe and effective venue and course. I think we're pretty fortunate in that we didn't feel that we needed to change any of the courses or venues that we were at this year, maybe some minor tweaks, but we were pretty content with everything that went on. Just letting some people in here. Forming community partnerships. So I mentioned before, we'll build the mailing list. Obviously, if you have personal connections with organizations, it's going to be more impactful coming from you versus a cold email from us. But we want to host an event that is really beneficial for people. We're astutely aware that just like one 5K is not going to change the trajectory of someone's life or athletic career. So that's why we're trying to build out these different channels to make the Unified 5K more of like a series and more of an impactful event than just a one-day thing. Second year, we're hoping to add these run and roll programs leading up to the race. So a couple of months of programming, weekly programming for people with and without disabilities, ongoing remote support as well, training programs, et cetera, increasing participant peer-to-peer fundraising, amputee mobility clinics. So about halfway, we're kind of envisioning that about halfway between the first year and the second year events, we host these amputee mobility clinics. They're pretty common with organizations like Challenge Athletes Foundation, where you teach amputees running drills. And we're going to kind of partner with our prosthetists who sponsored the blade donations, as well as Less Leg, More Heart, to kind of provide that event as well, and also keep the momentum with the 5K going, increasing sponsorships, using the proof of concept that we've gathered from all the events, the pictures, the video, et cetera, adding kids runs and adding para rowing as a division. We do that in Massachusetts, and we hope to add that to the other events as well, allowing people to row on Concept 2 ergs. I probably won't dive into all this because I want to give Nate and Brian enough time and then also have time for Q&As, but run and roll programs, peer-to-peer fundraising, I think I covered most of this stuff. The amputee mobility clinics, use them to recruit 5K participants, but also develop more partnerships. And it looks like some of these images are broken, but the grant program, adaptx.org/grants, has the various grants that we're opening up in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to pass it over to Nate. And if anyone has specific questions at the end, you could either throw them in the chat now, or we can open the floor at the end. But Nate, toss it to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brendan. I am Nate. I'm the director of a fitness center at a small Division III Christian liberal arts school in South Central Pennsylvania. Contacted Brendan last December about the AdaptX education, and he sent back, "Hey, by the way, do you have time to hop on a call? I have an idea." I'd never met Brendan before. I've never run in a charity 5K, let alone hosted a charity 5K. I don't know if Brendan knew that, but long story short, in May, we hosted one at Messiah. It was a really neat event, got to meet a lot of cool people along the way, make a lot of connections. I do think there's a lot of value in hosting one of these races at a university because we already have a lot of the built-in infrastructure. So immediately I could reach out to our conference and event services and reserve both an outdoor and an indoor location. They know where everything is located when it comes to outlets and electrical cords, and if the AC goes down, various types of things. They're also well versed in many groups that have been to campus before, what has worked, what hasn't worked. They put down some matting in our gym floor we had sled hockey with rolls on it, so they matted that floor to help protect the gym floor, so they were able to handle all that. We have our public safety officers and traffic patterns that they're used to with crowds on campus. Um, Again, our conference and event services, setting up tables, tearing things down. And because it was part of our university, there was no cost incurred for any of that stuff there. Um, so just a really good location for that. Come to find out throughout our campus and kind of partners within things, people kind of exist like silos on a campus sometimes. So it really kind of brought everyone together and found there was a lot of desire and kind of people doing isolated things to help various communities. We've connected AdaptX with our collaboratory program. Our collaboratory is an engineering nonprofit kind of group at Messiah, and they do things such as provide potable water sources or updated engineering techniques for farming in across the globe. And one of the things that they've done is designed wheelchairs for individuals in Zambia and Uganda. And one of the things that they're passionate about is it doesn't really do any good if we donate a chair and then there's no infrastructure existing in that country to help facilitate any repairs that need to be done. And so we actually have a community partner in Gulu, Africa. And so in 2026, so next fall, one of the projects through the collaboratory is going to be designing some adaptive sports equipment for Ability Sport Africa, which was the organization that helped run the race in Gulu. Partnering with 321 for Life. They were a vendor at our event and trying to kind of grow that partnership and see where we can combine access and increase access. Special Olympics, our university used to host Special Olympics up until COVID. And then once COVID happened, that relationship kind of fell apart and it hasn't been reestablished. Was able to speak with them, kind of reestablish that connection this past spring and over the summer. And our graduate PT program was going through kind of a curriculum redesign. And we've decided to offer the Special Olympics Unified Fitness Program. It's written into the curriculum of a PT class, so our PT students will get a hands-on internship working with individuals with intellectual disabilities. They will get kind of partial AdaptX training. All of the professors receive that through this race. And then use that unified fitness program through Special Olympics to kind of grow that 18 and older fitness, accessibility to fitness for those individuals. And then just community partners such as York Adaptive Recreation. They have a sled hockey program. Penn State University is only about an hour and a half from us. They're trying to grow their adaptive sports program, and their local kind of medical affiliate, Penn State Hershey, has a youth wheelchair basketball team, and is always looking for spots to have practices, tournaments, things like that. So we've spoken with them about potentially being a host site for them for tournaments and practices and things like that. So a lot of community partnerships. And then one of the things that kind of isn't on this slide, but right, like we're connecting with all these university partners and we like to look at, the fundraising and things like that. But if we're able to connect with these individuals and their youth programs or family members, things like that, it's that brand recognition. And that's a potential student in a seat in the future that can stay in their community, continue to know that Messiah is inclusive and supports and is trying to find ways to get involved how we can. And that's more likely for them to come to our university as well. So there's an admissions piece to that is kind of an ancillary and hard to measure, but definitely something that is, again, worthwhile at a university to consider.
I had a slide here, Nate, just like time of year being a maybe one of the bigger challenges from a university standpoint.
Yep, because we run on that academic calendar. And so we were trying to decide, when does it work in the spring semester with doubleheader basketball and track meets and everything else in the spring. And then you have graduation, undergraduate and graduate and all that. So we chose to do it after graduation. Just knowing campus would be a little more empty. We had a fairly significant kind of community involvement there, but nothing kind of directly with the campus. So we've talked about moving it, during the academic year, maybe the front end of fall break or spring break, something like that, to try to get a little more student involvement, have more built-in volunteers, things like that, spread awareness within our student population. The spring is really heavy too. We were the week after the state Special Olympics meet. And I think that kind of hurt our numbers a little bit because those athletes, a lot of them were tired or fatigued or looking for a break from training right after a long kind of training regimen leading up to that. And so that was kind of one caveat with that. And then vendors, we had three different vendors that all do inclusive fitness. And whereas and we didn't really see it as conflict of interest. I'm not sure of their exact idea of did they like being around another one or was it truly kind of all-inclusive type of thing?
Yeah, and I think also from like the Adaptex and university standpoint, we just wanted to, I think I did my due diligence pretty early on to talk to you about what are the main companies locally that donate to Messiah and just making sure that we weren't kind of hitting the same people that provide funding for the university. So we definitely are not like sliding in and trying to take donors and from the universities. So Chris should have you on the slide too, but Brian and Chris from University of Michigan, our most recent race, pass over to you guys to maybe share a couple anecdotes.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan. Appreciate that. Um, so this was our first take at doing a 5K sort. So we at University of Michigan and Adaptive Sport and Fitness have some competitive teams. Um, but this was our opportunity to do a kind of a large community focus and doing a 5K similar to Nate. We had never hosted one nor participated in one. So it was great to have Brendan and his experience with hosting these races and the involvement with the races and the support that they were able to give even from a distance was truly a great asset for us to be able to have this go on. Um, and it provided us an opportunity to engage with community members and other vendors that we hadn't necessarily seen before at some of our events that are more interested in this opportunity to be able to get out and do more of a family focused event where they can get out and run with their family and their friends and do the option of just 1 mile, have the option to do it in a sport chair or a hand cycle, be able to just walk with their colleagues and stuff was truly a great opportunity for us. And we were able to get volunteers from a couple of the sports teams to be able to come out. Brendan had a connection with that, and then we were able to kind of reach out to others that we know to be able to and support kind of the logistics of the day and be able to have them learn more about not only our programs, but what the vendors were there offering. Truly a great opportunity for people to just know not only what we do, but what others are doing that are within the same space. But as Nate kind of said, there's all these silos that go on, and one of the biggest obstacles that I think a lot of us uh, encounter is that we're in silos, and how do we kind of cross over and make bridges between them so that we're not necessarily doing things on our own, but have the opportunity to collaborate not only once, but at the future events. So being able to do that and then offer an opportunity for our student athletes to be able to come out and do something a little different. We did this the weekend before our students started. So we did the race on Saturday, which was like kind of the move-in weekend, the week prior and that weekend, and then classes started the following week. So there was the opportunity to kind of get the students that were away from school over the summer to be able to come out and actually participate on that end as well. which was a great opportunity for the students to be able to do something a little bit different that was out there. And I'd like to throw it to Chris. He had the opportunity to actually participate. He does a lot of our planning and running of events in general that we put on, but as an opportunity this time, he got to actually come out and do some of the setup that we do with everything, but actually get to participate in the race as well.
Yeah, thanks Brian, and thanks Brennan. Yeah, it was a blast to be able to just be an athlete. And our associate director was there as well, and the director of our program was also there. And the three of us, we just participated in the race. So our director used a hand cycle, and then our associate director and myself, we used push rim sport chairs. And from an athlete perspective, it was super easy to just go in, you get your shirt, you get your number, and you know where the start is, you know where the finish line is. You know, Dr. O, our director, he'll claim that he did not know where the finish line was, but that's because he thought that there was a whole other half of the race to do, and that's why he didn't win, according to him. But it was really fun just to be able to compete, and with it being a unified 5K, you know, you're running or pushing or biking, you know, next to somebody who is maybe doing the race a little bit different than you. But I think that that's what kind of allows you to build that community and have a lot of fun. And, you know, you're just an athlete, right? You're just an athlete doing a 5K, building that community. And the reason that, you know, Eric, Dr. O, and myself were able to just do the race was because Brendan made this probably one of the easiest events to host. And we do host a lot of events annually through University of Michigan Adaptive Sports and Fitness, but this was just easy. And, you know, Brian and Brendan worked together a lot to make sure that the event went smooth. But if there's anybody on this call that's having reservations about hosting because of the lift of it, I want to kind of put some of those concerns at ease and really give Brendan a shout out right now and just say that he really did make it easy for us to host this event, made it easy to connect with the community, and allow us to kind of build out the community that we're trying to build here in Ann Arbor.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Brian and Nate. Yeah, so that, I mean, ultimately, I'm not pretending to have all the answers for what makes the perfect 5K, the most successful 5K from a fundraising standpoint. That's not my specialty. It's like I mentioned, it will be our focus in subsequent years, but I think we did a pretty good job of pulling something together, a lot of different communities, a lot of impact. And I suppose there's nothing really preventing you from organizing your own 5K, calling it whatever you'd like with your organization. And I would love to help you if you would like to take that approach. But I think there is a lot of value that we can provide as part of our Unified 5K series. And we'd love to see the event in twice as many communities next year. That's the goal of having this webinar open house, as well as the work that we're going to continue doing. So I'll leave it open for Q&A now. I know sometimes there's 25 people on the call, can get a little tricky, and it can be a little time consuming. So if you feel like most of your questions got answered, you're more than welcome to sign off. I'm also more than happy to meet with you individually. If this piqued your interest and you are interested in kind of continuing the conversation, feel free to reach out to me by email and we can find a time to talk individually. That's probably kind of quote unquote next steps. But if you have any Q&A questions that you think are kind of general that maybe other people would be interested in, I'll leave that open now. But again, if you're going to sign off, thanks so much again for signing on today and joining us. I'll hang around for a bit to answer questions.
I saw one from Sandy in the chat box there of, do we use the track at the university or keep the race in the street? My original intention when I first talked to Brendan was to use our athletic facility, our track, and our giant parking lot down there. However, I quickly found out that that facility was off limits because they were redoing the track, resurfacing it, and resurfacing the parking lot. And so that was off limits all summer as well. So we switched and did out and back around campus. We're not an overly mountainous campus, but we're also not flat. So I don't know, I probably had 15 to 20 different iterations of the track to find the flattest that I could. And I think we ended up with like 130 feet of elevation change across the 5K. And then the 1 mile might have been like 60 feet or something like that. We did have wheelchair users do both the 1 mile and the 5K. Some of that was through vendors that came and provided more adaptive chairs than a standard push rim. But yes, you can do kind of both there.
And for us, we did ours at a nearby community. The logistics of getting it in a downtown Ann Arbor was kind of a tricky task. But we found there's a trail nearby that's called Border to Border Trail, and there's a large park that's out there. So it actually made the parking of it super easy, and we didn't have to worry about traffic, street traffic, or anything like that. And went out there and found they had like a standard 10-foot wide paved trail all the way around, and made like an easy kind of loop for us within the park, that made it for a fairly flat and paved surface all the way around to make it a little bit more on the accessible side for all of the participants. Um, and then just kind of went with it from there.
Yeah, 3 of our 6 races in the States were at parks. And they offer a variety of benefits from parking to, like Brian said, access wise, they tend to be relatively flat and there aren't cars pulling in and out. So yeah, local parks with bike paths prove to be a pretty good option as well. All right. So I'll hang if anyone else has any questions, but like I said, it's happy to have an individual conversation with anyone who might be interested in talking more about it and kind of hashing out the details and the challenges of what you think or what you might anticipate in your community. So. Targeted geographic area for exclusion. So like not having to within close confines of each other. Yeah, that's a good question. I think with like Nate and I had talked about this because there was another university in Pennsylvania that would like to host a race. I think being an hour and a half, 2 hours away, even maybe a little less than that, you're tapping into different communities. So I don't really view it as two competing. Even like our Massachusetts and our Rhode Island races were only about an hour away, and there was a dozen people that participated in both. So that's, I guess, one advantage of having both within a certain geographic area of one another. But yeah, I think we probably wouldn't want them to be next door, but I wouldn't say no to one. We would just kind of discuss maybe amongst the three, or the two sites, kind of time of year, maybe try to space them out a little bit. And then there's going to be different communities, and even an hour away, you're kind of targeting different people. So I don't think we have a necessary and exclusion criteria. It'll probably be kind of case by case. All right. Well, if there are not any other questions, I'll let Brian, Chris, Nate go. I can hang on for a couple extra minutes, but guys, thanks for chiming in and joining. And again, thanks for everyone who signed on.
Thanks, Brendan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brendan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Cynthia. See you tonight, Mateo.
Yep, I'm coming tonight. And
All
Mom.
right. All right, awesome.
Leave me to give me cats